So let me try to organize the sense of frustration that we sense out there into three categories. First, the hiring their own kind, or the unfair hiring practices. We have heard anecdotes of how, in certain cases, heads of business units or HR managers have a preference for candidates they are familiar with, or of the same nationality, for reasons that are irrelevant to job performance and irrespective of whether they are more competent than other candidates. We have also heard of situations where Singaporeans were retrenched or made to resign in the name of downsizing, only to realize later that their positions were given to foreigners who were, coincidentally, from the same countries as their business heads. So let me be quite blunt. Would these practices not sound discriminatory? Would any respectable, progressive company endorse these practices? If this hiring is indeed because they care only about choosing familiar candidates and not about hiring the best man for the job, then I'll say that such practices have no place in Singapore's workplaces. Discrimination will not and cannot be tolerated. But I'll say this, stating this principle does not mean that it is easy to implement. I think we all recognize that proving discrimination is sometimes difficult. It is not always possible to discern whether such hiring practices are legitimately based on the objective requirements of the job or motivated by personal connections. And we all know how Kwanzi works as well. But I know that Singaporeans perceive some outcomes to be against the principles of meritocracy and fairness, and I fully understand why we feel angry in the process. Second, business heads or HR managers may not be paying enough attention to local talent. In the name of efficiency, or sometimes meritocracy, some managers will want an employee in as fast as possible, whether Singapore or foreign. So it may therefore be more expedient for them to rely on recommendations from others or ready stock of foreign candidates supplied by headhunters. In fact, one CEO we met told us that it was simply more convenient for him to mount an overseas recruitment exercise in a particular country to get all the skilled manpower he needs than to invest in a detailed and time-consuming recruitment search for potential candidates within the local job market. Third, qualified foreign candidates who come in at lower level employment passes and even at S-Pass they compete directly with our fresh university and diploma graduates and mid-level PME Singaporeans. So in some cases, firms may prefer the foreign candidate following a purely merit-based assessment, as he may be as qualified, but perhaps willing to work for a lower wage compared to a Singaporean. Such foreign candidates could include talented graduates from developed countries looking for better opportunities in Asia. Is this meritocratic? Yes. But should we just take a hands-off, laissez-faire attitude when faced with this situation? There is a real impact, as it can deprive our young of the opportunities they need to learn on the job and to progress to more senior positions later on. It is only fair and reasonable that foreign firms and foreigners working here bear responsibility to the local community. In a sense, this is somewhat of a social compact. We do not require global firms to give preferential treatments to locals, but they must be fair to Singaporeans. There must be equal opportunities for our people, whether at hiring or in advancement. There has to be a level playing field. So having articulated the thinking, how do we translate it into something that works? Now, this is a complex issue that I think it cannot just depend on one silver bullet to solve all the problems. So we will take a system approach that will comprise structural as well as process-based adjustments. In essence, this is what we will do. In terms of structure, we will adjust our work pass frameworks. In fact, the changes made to the employment pass framework in January last year was aimed at addressing some of these concerns. What we did was to tier the qualifying salary criteria to account for experience. If you recall, previously it was $2,800, we raised it to $3,000, but it wasn't just an entry level at $3,000. We tiered it at different levels, meaning that if you were to come in at an older age with more experience, you would not qualify for employment pass only at $3,000. It would have to be higher because you need to pay for an appropriate level. And the intent was really to level the playing field so that more experienced foreigners do not undercut our own PMEs. Well, we have seen the numbers at the EP level drop by about 1,600 last year. This is the first time the EP numbers have dropped since 2003. Some have been converted to the S-Pass instead, because a lot of them were clustering actually at about $3,000. But now they'll be subject to DRC ratios and levies. So this formulation, I think, works and it has an impact. And as you are aware, we will now apply this same tiering concept to our S-Pass. But over and above that, I will make further adjustments to the EP framework, especially to the Q1 segment later this year. We are working on the details, but I believe that this, and the purpose of this, is to better help our junior to mid-level PMEs. Because the Q1 segment, I think, needs adjustment.